Good morning. I know we're all really excited, and I am too, and I want to get started. Good morning, everyone. Bonne journée. My name is Amanda Green, and I'm the science and STEM teacher here at École Champs Vallée School. I'd like to welcome everyone today, students and staff, members of Blackgold Regional Schools, special guests from our local community, Michael Strambitsky School, the Canadian Space Agency, Let's Talk Science, and of course, everyone watching from home. Nous sommes extrêmement honorés de vous recevoir pour cet événement avec l'astronaut David Saint-Jacques, en direct de l'espace, et d'avoir la chance de partager notre enthousiasme pour l'espace et toutes les possibilités que ça apporte à notre école et communauté. To be able to talk live with a Canadian astronaut from the International Space Station is a dream come true, but to do so alongside one of my heroes is indescribable. It is my great honor to introduce to you our host, Dr. Robert Thirsk. Canadian astronaut, physician, engineer, Dr. Thirsk has traveled in space twice and was the first Canadian Space Agency astronaut to take part in a long-duration mission as part of the Expedition 20 and 21 crew. Dr. Thirsk has been a great supporter of the work that we do here with some of our space projects, especially Let's Talk Science's Tomatosphere initiative. It's a great program that has taught our students a lot about plants and the scientific method in a truly out-of-this-world way. So please help me in welcoming my friend, Bob Thirsk.
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. And a special welcome to everyone joining us on social media. Thanks for joining us. Je suis très content d'être ici avec vous tous aujourd'hui. I'm looking forward in a few minutes to speaking with my friend, David Saint-Jacques. David launched to space on December the 3rd, and he has now been experiencing the wonder, the awe, the magic of living and working in space on the International Space Station for now 4 months. And just last week, he performed his first spacewalk. Pendant sa mission, David participe à un grand nombre d'expériences à bord de la station. Les astronautes sont des parfaits cobayes pour les scientifiques qui étudient les effets de l'espace sur la santé humaine. L'automne passé, David a invité les enseignants et les élèves canadiens à faire une activité scientifique sur Terre pendant qu'ils feraient des expériences scientifiques dans l'espace. Over 60,000 students are participating in a project known as Living Space. It has them doing real science and thinking like scientists as they learn how environmental factors like air temperature, humidity, the carbon dioxide level can influence our mental and our physical health. The Canadian Space Agency is collaborating with the educational organization Let's Talk Science to bring David's mission into Canadian schools like this one through the Living Space project. To tell a little bit more about this interesting project, I'm happy to now welcome David Lepidus, Vice President of Let's Talk Science. Please welcome David.
Bonjour, good morning. Hello, everyone. We're very excited to be here today. And going by what I'm seeing in the room here, I think you're excited to be here today, too. I see some costumes and some wonderful faces and everybody smiling. So thank you very much for being here today. I'm the Vice President of Let's Talk Science for programs. That means that I work with the wonderful team at Let's Talk Science and at the Canadian Space Agency and with other partners to develop projects like Living Space. We're really, really proud of our relationship that has been longstanding for many years with the Canadian Space Agency, and especially with Robert Thirsk, who has been involved in several projects that we've worked on over the years, including Tomatosphere and others, that help bring the excitement of space studies to more and more Canadian students right across the country for pretty much every grade range, depending on the project. As the career landscape evolves in Canada, as jobs change, and as the things that you need to have in your toolkit to do those jobs change, it's more important than ever for Canadian education to keep up with those changing needs and the things that students like you need to know and need to be able to do. Specifically, we think it's incredibly important for students of today to have the digital literacy and critical thinking skills that will be needed for their world when they leave school and go out into the world of work or out into Canadian society tomorrow. And one of the things that we like most about the Living Space project is that it provides exactly that. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to do real science, to understand some of the conditions of the environment around you, and also to learn about how the conditions of the environment on the International Space Station need to be so carefully monitored and managed to sustain life and well-being in space for human beings. So we're super excited that many of the students here at this school have had a chance to participate, and right across Canada. I should mention, in fact, that this school, École Champs Vallée, is the only school in Alberta that's having this experience today. And so we're very pleased to participate in this. But there are lots and lots of schools all around the province and all across Canada that have participated in the Living Space project. And what we've seen is exactly what we hoped we would see, to be quite honest, which is that kids would be inspired to pursue STEM by engaging in real science, in doing real science in their classrooms with their teachers, and learning about how to engage in inquiry that helps to understand the world around us and helps to understand how science actually works. So we just wanted to say thank you very, very much for your enthusiasm for the project and for participating in this, because really it's the teachers and students in this room and all across the country who help us figure out the best kinds of projects to create that will help you with everything that I've been talking about today, and will encourage you and enable you to assist in understanding everything that we need to understand in order to continue with space exploration in the future. So thanks again. Thank you especially to our friends at the Canadian Space Agency and with the Government of Canada for your support. And we look forward to continuing our wonderful relationship with all of our partners right across Canada, and developing and maintaining wonderful projects like Living Space and many others in the future. So with that, I'll just say again, thank you very much. And I'll invite Amanda Green and a small group of her students to come right up here and carry on. Thank you very much.
Good job, guys. So, as most of you here know, I am a huge space enthusiast. I love this stuff. I've always loved science, but I can clearly remember a few exciting moments when previous Canadian astronauts were flying in space and something inside of me was lit up, this unquenchable spark. As teachers, every day we try to be the spark for you all. We try to find different ways to get you excited or interested about something. Having a Canadian Space Agency astronaut, David Saint-Jacques, aboard the International Space Station right now, performing experiments that we can do alongside him, and then getting to ask him questions about it live is a truly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I hope that one day we will ignite your spark, and that maybe one day one of you will become part of our nation's effort to put a maple leaf on the moon, or maybe even Mars. I'd like to welcome some of my students here to come up and tell you a bit about their exciting work, followed by questions from kids from École Champs Vallée and Michael Strambitsky School.
Hello, my name is Alicia Anwar, and these are my classmates Manat, Abayami, and Nick. In our coding and robotics class, we worked on Let's Talk Science's Living Space project, where we coded microbits to measure environmental conditions in our school, like carbon dioxide, temperature, and humidity. We compared this data to the International Space Station, and we were really surprised how dry the air is here during winter compared to a controlled environment like the space station. It was fun to be able to learn how to code and how it connects to physical and mental health. And we also learned about space, taking care of the environment, and the physical and mental health connections. My favorite part was trying something new, like learning how to code and understand how systems like this work.
Thank you, Mrs. Green and Alicia and the other students. It looks like you've already had some important scientific findings from the living space experiment. Well done. Mrs. Green mentioned that I had the opportunity to fly in space twice, once aboard the space shuttle and again aboard the International Space Station. My first mission lasted 17 days, and my second mission lasted 6 months. But you know, 17 days and 6 months wasn't long enough. I missed the work that I did. I missed viewing our beautiful planet from the vantage point of space. And mostly, I missed my crewmates. They were incredible people, and we worked well together. But 6 months of spaceflight took a toll on my body. In spite of daily exercise, I lost aerobic fitness, muscle strength, and bone calcium. My eyes and my vision were affected, and I missed my family, my friends, and even nature. So that's the bad news. The good news is that the research that is currently being performed aboard the International Space Station can help us to address some of these physical and psychological issues. The station is a remarkable laboratory. Les expériences canadiennes menées maintenant sur la station sont axées sur la santé humaine. La station est un environnement idéal pour faire ce type de recherche parce que l'espace est mauvais pour la santé. La microgravité, le niveau élevé de rayonnement et même l'isolement. L'environnement spatial a un impact majeur sur les astronautes. The station is also a closed environment, an airtight habitat, which can make astronauts more sensitive to some of the cabin air pollutants and to some of the other factors as well. L'environnement de la station spatiale est sous une surveillance constante. La qualité de l'air, la qualité de l'eau, même la propreté de toutes les surfaces des modules sont constamment évaluées. Et on vérifie le niveau de rayonnement, le niveau sonore, tout ce qui peut avoir un impact sur le bien-être physique et psychologique des astronautes. L'Agence spatiale canadienne collabore étroitement avec des partenaires nationaux et étrangers pour écrire une nouvelle page de l'histoire de l'exploration spatiale. Les missions habitées dans l'espace lointain. So, we are working to ensure that today's astronauts, but also the future astronauts, stay healthy and strong. This will allow us then one day to venture even further into space and eventually to the planet Mars. And I hope that perhaps one day, 20 years from now, one of you will be one of those astronauts walking on the surface of Mars as a Canadian representative. So I'm looking at the time. The clock says 9:54. So in 1 minute, we're going to start our communication with David Saint-Jacques. This is Mission Control in Houston. They're aware of École Champs Vallée and about the event that we're just about to have with David Saint-Jacques. And they're calling him right now and making sure that he's got his camera set up and that his microphone is working properly. And in a few seconds, Mission Control will talk to David and ask him to contact us to make sure that we're ready for the event as well. That's the flight director right here. He's the overall boss of the entire mission. And just above or to his right is an astronaut working on the ground. His position in mission control is called Capcom, and he'll be the person that will call David for this event with
Station, this is Houston on Space Ground 2. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready.
Canadian Space Agency, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Robert Thirsk at École Champs Vallée in Beaumont, Alberta. How do you hear us? Station, this is Robert Thirsk at École Champs Vallée in Beaumont, Alberta. How do you hear us?
Station, this is Houston ACR. Please stand by while CSA is working on technical difficulties.
That's part of the magic of living and working in space. David is working in the Japanese experiment module here. Right behind him, you see a large white apparatus. That is an airlock. You know that outside the space station, there's a vacuum out there. Sometimes we want to put experiments and other hardware outside into space, but we can't do that by just opening up a window or opening a door. We would lose all the pressure inside the station. So David and his crewmates would open up that door, that circular door right behind him, put an experiment in there, close the door, drop the pressure down to a vacuum in that white chamber, and then when everyone's ready, the door on the outside of that chamber will open and the experiment will go out to the outside of the space station. David's flight suit on the front chest there, it has a representation of the logo for the Canadian Space Agency. So it represents the horizon of the Earth and also a satellite in space as well. Okay. Station, this is Robert Thirsk at École Champs Vallée in Beaumont, Alberta. How do you hear us?
Hey, Bob, I have you loud and clear. How me?
Very well, David. We have a a large gymnasium here filled with many hundreds of students and adults. Several of the students have questions for you if you're ready.
I am ready.
Oh, okay. I am ready. And actually, David, I think the first question is actually going to be an answer to a question that you earlier asked.
In our science class, we are growing tomato street plants and other vegetables in Mars and Moon simulant soil to learn about plant needs and producing food in space. Our classroom looks like a Martian greenhouse. We decided to compare the carbon dioxide, humidity, and temperature of our classroom with other classrooms that don't have plants. It was interesting to see how much that removes the carbon dioxide, but also increases the humidity, and we would love to see more plants in our school and in our community. This project is an exciting way for us to see the data for ourselves and realize that we can make a difference in taking care of the Earth, while it also helps astronauts survive in space.
Very, very cool. Yes, I agree. We need more plants everywhere. We had a few plants of salad growing here on station recently, and it was a great joy to look after them.
And David, that was Alicia. Would you mind asking the next question, please?
Certainly. As you know, astronauts have to be ready to respond to a great variety of challenges and always be ready to adapt and adapt again to new situations. I was wondering, through this process of coming up with ideas to monitor and master your environment, have you had faced challenges, and what have you learned in the process?
Learning how to code was very challenging in the beginning. We had to practice with simpler challenges, like making a blinking heartbeat and step counter before we could attempt coding the sensor array. We had to work as a team and ask our teacher for help, and she even had to ask some of her friends and people from Let's Talk Science to help us debug and troubleshoot together. We got to learn about entering data and making graphs, which was really interesting, but also very challenging. And like coding, I think it is something that I will use in the future.
Yes, all these lessons you can use throughout your life.
That was Manat. Would you ask the next question, David?
La santé physique et mentale et le rôle du Canada dans l'espace.
Nous aimerions savoir comment votre travail à bord de la station spatiale peut améliorer notre qualité de vie sur la Terre.
Oui, alors, la station spatiale, c'est un immense laboratoire de recherche. Et toute la recherche qu'on fait ici, ça sert toujours deux buts. D'abord, un but direct pour aider les astronautes, nous aider un jour à explorer plus loin. Mais toujours en arrière, il y a le but d'aider la vie sur Terre. Parce que tout ce qu'on fait pour aider les astronautes en orbite, ça peut s'appliquer sur Terre. Par exemple, en recherche médicale, la recherche sur les nouveaux matériaux, la recherche sur l'environnement, sur l'énergie. Tout ça, ça peut servir sur Terre.
We all watched your spacewalk live at school last week, and I wanted to know what you thought of the experience.
It's very difficult to describe. You know, the view is not new to me because I see it the same view as from the window. Being in a spacesuit was not new because I had the training in Houston in the pool. Being in vacuum was not new because I had been in the airlock. Doing a procedure is not new because I've trained for years. But doing all of that together, that was new. And it's that experience of being outside the station with nothing between me and the rest of the universe. I felt like a very little satellite looking at our beautiful planet. And it just filled me with awe and also humility, because you realize that it's normally impossible to survive there. We only survive there because of the human ingenuity and the thousands of people who work hard to make it possible. So to me, it was a great example of teamwork and collaboration and creativity, and how the human mind really knows no limits.
In my science class, we are learning about plant needs and the effects of microgravity and radiation on plant germination with Tomatosphere project. Are there currently Tomatosphere seeds on the ISS, and if you were to plant anything you wanted in space, what would that be?
So actually, we have seeds coming up on the SpaceX 17 in about 2 weeks. And so that'll be exciting to get this Canadian project back on board. It's been going on for many years. So I'm looking forward to using that. I'm impressed that this project is still going. I think Bob Thirsk, was one of the first crew members to actually be involved in this project.
Nous apprenons à construire des habitats merci un modèle en science. Comment la Station spatiale internationale protège-t-elle les astronautes des radiations tout en gardant la chaleur?
Alors, la station spatiale, en fait, dans le fond, c'est 2 tubes d'aluminium l'un dans l'autre. Hein. Chaque module, c'est un cylindre d'aluminium et il y a un autre cylindre d'aluminium. Ça, c'est ce qui nous protège du vide. Après ça, pour ce qui est de la température, contrôle de la température, il y a la coquille, si on veut, de la station est chauffée pour garder la température normale. Et puis à l'extérieur, il y a des endroits qui sont critiques, qui sont protégés par des épaisseurs de tissus protecteurs. Mais pour les radiations, ce qu'on a, en fait, c'est l'équipement autour de nous qui nous protège, qui absorbe la radiation. Et nos chambres à coucher, il y a une petite épaisseur en plus de matériaux absorbants pour absorber un peu plus les radiations. Mais tu sais ce qui nous protège le plus pour la station, c'est que la station est encore à l'intérieur du champ magnétique de la Terre. Et c'est ce champ magnétique-là qui nous protège de la majorité des radiations de l'espace. Lorsqu'on ira sur Mars, comme sur les projets que tu as étudiés, là, il va falloir augmenter beaucoup la protection du vaisseau spatial parce que là, on va être, si on veut, complètement exposé aux radiations cosmiques sans la protection du champ magnétique de la Terre.
How does the radiation astronauts are exposed to while in space affect their overall health over the course of their mission?
Yeah, it's very important. We constantly monitor the radiation we receive. I always carry a little radiation monitor on me because basically being exposed to radiation increases your risk of developing a cancer one day when you get older. And so that's the same risk that people who work in, for example, some power plants or down in the mines, some other workers are exposed, or people who work in nuclear submarines. So we use the same norms, make sure astronauts do not get more exposed to radiation than any other person on Earth. But still, it does increase our risk. So we get very close monitoring of our health as a consequence of that.
Would a paper airplane fly in the same way in space as it does here on Earth?
How about we try? Let's try to make a paper plane. I think it should, but it doesn't need to have big wings because there's no gravity to pull it down. I think that was a successful test flight. Oh, Nick is going to throw it back at me. Got it.
We know that astronauts exercise to stay physically healthy in space, but how do you maintain a positive mental health?
So this is an extremely important question. It's maybe even more important, of course, to remain happy and mentally healthy, to be able to perform at a high level. So the way we do that, first, we are very close to each other. The other astronauts with me on board, they've become like my brothers and sisters. We have no secrets for each other. We always confide in each other. And then you have to keep a good relationship with your family on the ground, maintain the bridge open, maintain a good link with your life on Earth, and also keep some time for yourself. You have to stay in balance in order to be healthy in your head. You have to be physically healthy, you have to have success in your job, you have to have some hobbies, you have to have some friends. All these things in your life have to be in balance, and it's even more important when you're on an expedition to maintain that balance.
Is sleeping in space hard for you? Do you feel more or less rested compared to sleeping on Earth?
So that has changed. In the beginning, I had a little bit of difficulty sleeping because my body was not used to the sensation of not having any weight. You know, when you sleep, you're basically, I'm inside a sleeping bag, inside my little telephone box, that's like my crew quarters, and you're just like this, floating like that. And initially, it took me a few weeks for my body to get used to that. Then I had some back pain because my back gets longer. As when you're in 0G, you get taller, and that can cause back pain. But after a while, I got used to it, and now I sleep very, very comfortably. Every muscle in my body completely relaxed.
I would imagine that it can get lonely in space. When you are on the ISS looking out at space, does it feel worse or better?
You know, actually, it doesn't feel lonely at all because it's a very intense human experience here with the other crew members, with all my friends here. And so you're never really alone. And then you're constantly communicating with the Earth. And looking outside the window is it's really more a source of joy because I see our beautiful planet with everybody that I know and love is living there. And so you don't feel like you're far away. It's surprising, eh? But I really don't feel lonely up here, never. I do miss my family. I would like to hug my children.
Votre plan pour l'arrivée? Reviendrez-vous à la SSI ou arrivez-vous sur la Lune ou sur Mars?
Ah là là, oui, ça me fait rêver ta question. Je ne sais pas. Maintenant, je me concentre sur ma mission actuelle. C'est beaucoup de travail pour être un bon astronaute ici à bord de la station. Après, aller sur la Lune, aller sur Mars, je ne sais pas. Moi, je pense que ça va prendre encore quelques années avant qu'on soit capable d'aller dans ces endroits-là. Certainement pour Mars, je pense que moi, je suis trop vieux. Ça va être des astronautes plus jeunes qui vont y aller. Je pense que les gens qui vont aller sur Mars, ils sont déjà nés, mais c'est encore des enfants. Alors, c'est peut-être toi, c'est peut-être un de tes amis. Si vous voulez rêver de ça, vous pouvez, c'est un bon rêve.
Merci, David. Nous avons d'autres étudiants ici avec des questions, mais c'est tout le temps pour aujourd'hui. Thank you very much for giving us your viewpoint on the Living Space Project and what life in space is all about. I also have to say that the students here really enjoyed your aerobatics that you performed for us at the beginning of the downlink. It was absolutely superb and gave us a really good impression that you're having too good of a time up there. So continued success. We really hold you in high regard, high esteem. So long from Beaumont, Alberta.
Merci, Bob. Merci tout le monde. Have a good day and dare to explore.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Few more questions that students at l'École have prepared. We ran out of time with David Saint-Jacques, but I'm happy as a former Canadian Space Agency astronaut, to see if I could answer some of these questions on behalf of David. So, the next question.
What do you feel is the most important experiment that has occurred or is currently taking place on the International Space Station?
That's like choosing my favorite child. It's impossible to answer that question. As you know, aboard the space station, we do a number of scientific experiments. So plant biology, animal biology, human physiology that David has talked about today, fluid physics, combustion science, medical demonstrations, materials processing. My background is in medicine, so I think that some of the medical science experiments are helping us to not only understand how we can prepare for future astronauts to go on even more daring missions, but bring some of those medical discoveries back home to Earth and improve the lives of patients here on Earth. So in a number of areas, we're making advances and frontiers. I think medical science is something that we're doing a really good job at in the station. Great question.
It was recently announced that Canada's average temperature increase since 1948 is almost double that of most countries. Some people ask, why would we bother going to the moon or Mars if we can't take care of our own planet? After viewing Earth from space, how has this changed your point of view on protecting our environment, and what role do you think the Canadian space industry can have?
So the space program actually is going to help us better understand what climate change, global warming is all about. A good example would be that on the very first mission of the first Canadian astronaut, Marc Garneau, he and his crew launched a satellite from the cargo bay of the shuttle called the Earth Radiation Budget Satellite. And that satellite has helped us to give us a heads up about these warming temperatures that you described in your question. So those kinds of experiments that we're doing aboard the station are really important. Astronomy is really important. The second planet out from the sun is called Venus. And we went there decades ago, sent robotic spacecraft there. And we thought that Venus was going to be a warmer planet than Earth, certainly because it's closer to the sun. But it is extremely hot there, 450 degrees Celsius, which is a temperature high enough to melt lead. That took us by surprise. And what we learned was that the atmosphere of Venus is carbon dioxide. And it is a runaway greenhouse effect, which is an omen for what could happen to Earth's environment in the future. So the climate change issue is being addressed by space science, by space technology. And you're right, looking out the window of the space shuttle or the space station gave me a perspective that humans need to do a better job treating our planet, that without space flight, I wouldn't have realized how vulnerable and how fragile Earth is and our ecosystem as well. So space sensitizes us to the problem with environmental damage, and it gives us good scientific data back that helps us to address climate change. Great question.
What is your hardest challenge you've had to overcome in your journey to get to space?
My hardest challenge, that would have to be the training. You know, when you're in space, you often have only one chance to do something right. Because of the aggressive timeline, the schedule that we operate under when we're in space, because of the constraints of orbital dynamics, often we have only one chance to perform an operation correctly in space. But it's important that we do operate correctly, because scientists' careers, graduate students' work is dependent on the work that we do in space is being correct. So training on the ground prepares us to perform well in space. And I would have to say that the training took me to my limits. Took me to my physical, my mental, my emotional limits, because I trained over and over and over again in trainers and in simulators on the ground, making lots and lots of mistakes. But from those mistakes, I learned how to enhance my performance so that when I did have an opportunity to fly twice in space, that I performed near flawlessly. So training was really, really tough, but it was very beneficial.
Quelle est la
situation la plus effrayante que vous avez vécue comme astronaute? En sachant que l'exploration spatiale est assez dangereuse, encouragez-vous vos propres enfants à poursuivre des travaux dans votre domaine?
C'est une bonne question parce que de voyager dans l'espace, c'est encore dangereux. À cause principalement le lancement et aussi l'atterrissage. Les deux phases de vol qui sont les plus risquées. Et aussi, j'encourage mes enfants propres de poursuivre une carrière dans l'espace parce que pour tous les gens, j'encourage tous les gens de poursuivre une carrière qui est un petit peu en dehors de leur zone de confort, de presser, de poursuivre les frontières.
We heard that the CSA now has a junior astronaut program. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. What do I need to learn to get there, and how the junior astronauts help kids like me?
So the Junior Astronaut Program is a new initiative of the Canadian Space Agency. It's going to be focused on getting young Canadians excited about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM, arts as well, as a means to bolster the science culture and the space program in Canada. It's going to be built on 3 different activity platforms that you, as junior astronauts, can participate in. One of the pillars is going to be science and technology. Another pillar is going to be fitness and nutrition. And then the third pillar is going to be teamwork and communication. So you can get involved in any of the structured activities that we'll be offering to you in the coming months to prepare for a potential career as an astronaut. And if you have an opportunity to participate in all 3 of those areas that I just mentioned, you can apply to be selected to visit the Canadian Space Agency next year as well. So good luck in your pursuit of a career as an astronaut. If you have a dream in life, whether it's a dream about a space career or whatever you want to do in life, get a good education, learn teamwork skills, and hold on to that dream. Some of your dreams do come true. Good question.
En quoi le Canada arme-t-il pour Gateway lancera-t-il différents modèles précédents?
Nous avons eu au Canada 2 bras robotiques dans l'espace. Premièrement, le Canadarm à bord de la navette spatiale. Et deuxièmement, le Canadarm2 à bord de la Station spatiale internationale. Et récemment, le Canada a annoncé qu'un 3e bras robotique, le Canadarm3, sera en orbite autour de la Lune dans la prochaine décennie. Ce nouveau bras sera un petit peu plus petit que Canadarm2, 8 mètres et demi, comparativement 17 mètres pour le bras robotique à bord de la station spatiale. Mais le Canadarm3 sera plus intelligent, incorporer les technologies avancées, par exemple AI, Artificial Intelligence, et sera capable d'opérer autonome, sans humain, sans astronaute à bord de la station lunaire.
Pourquoi pensez-vous qu'investir dans l'industrie spatiale est important et qu'il s'agit d'une utilisation utile de l'argent de notre nation?
Il y a beaucoup de raisons pour le Canada d'investir dans le programme spatial. Premièrement, l'économie. Chaque année, l'industrie spatiale au Canada récolte plus de 4 milliards de dollars en revenus pour ajouter l'économie et les emplois pour les personnes avec des intérêts dans les sciences au Canada. Mais deuxièmement, il y a beaucoup des avances technologiques, scientifiques qui sont comme retombées pour la société canadienne. Par exemple, le bras canadien a inspiré un bras robotique pour faire la chirurgie dans les hôpitaux dans plusieurs centres du Canada, y inclut la Calgary, Hamilton et aussi Saskatoon.
Was it hard to leave your family? How often do you communicate with them?
Well, this question, was it hard to leave your family? That's a question for David Saint-Jacques. He has 3 small children and a wonderful spouse as well. When I flew in space, my children were a little bit older than the children currently of David Saint-Jacques, but it was difficult. In fact, I would say that was probably the most difficult part of my long-duration flight, was missing my family. When I was in space, I missed some birthday parties. I missed going to school concerts. And then when small problems arose at home as well, problems with the furnace or with the water heater, I wasn't there to help out. And that bothered me a little bit. So if you have an interest of becoming a psychologist in the future, some of your research could help astronauts adapt to very long duration flights of 2.5 or longer years.
Because you're a medical doctor as well as an astronaut, I'd like to know if you can tell me what would happen if you get a cut in space and if you bleed or heal differently because of microgravity.
Yes, you did your research. You know that David Saint-Jacques is a medical doctor, but I'm also a medical doctor as well. So I feel like I can answer this question. Some of the research that we've been doing aboard the space station, not with humans, but with animals, such as mice and rats, has raised concern about the question you're asking, about whether or not wounds heal better or worse in space. Some of the initial findings of our research suggest that the manufacturing by our body of what we call connective tissue, which is like scar tissue, is impaired in space. The other thing that concerns us is that we've learned that some of the bacteria that live aboard a spacecraft, similar to the bacteria that are all over our homes, all over our schools, all over our bodies, are what we say scientifically more virulent or more powerful. They're stronger in space than they are on Earth. So it makes me think that if an astronaut were to suffer from a laceration, a cut, a wound, that number one, the healing might be slower, and number two, there might be greater risk of that wound getting infected. So if you're interested, please do some research in that area for us as well.
Why did you... I forget what it says. Why did you want to become an astronaut?
Of course, it would be best if David answered this question, but I think I know him well enough to answer that question. When we were young, there was an American president who once said that we go to space not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And also because by going to space, and by exploring space, we can have an opportunity to measure the best of our energies and our skills. So David is the kind of person, I'm the kind of person, the other Canadian Space Agency astronauts are the kind of people who want to do things because they're the right thing to do, not because they're easy. We want to continue to work outside of our comfort zone and take on near impossible challenges. Because after you've flown in space, after you've taken on some of these near impossible challenges, you make the biggest difference to society, and it's a tremendous sense of fulfillment. So David wanted to become an astronaut, certainly to do silly somersaults in space, to look out the window and see the beautiful planet down below, but he wanted to challenge himself and test his abilities.
From recent news events, India has destroyed one of its satellites, which has created at least 400 pieces of orbital debris. NASA chief has called this a terrible thing that could endanger the ISS. What is the plan if one of these pieces of debris does impact the ISS?
Yes, about 3 weeks ago or so, the government of India tested one of their missiles that is capable of destroying satellites in space. They tested it on a satellite of their own that they had no more use for, and the test was successful. But as you said, it created hundreds of pieces of debris. When we're flying in space, we travel at extremely high speeds. We travel at speeds around 8 or 10 kilometers per second. So if you run into one of these pieces of debris, even though it's small, it can puncture a hole in your spacecraft, and the astronauts and the spacecraft could be lost. So I was angry when this news story broke. I was disappointed when the story came out. It seems like whenever human beings go into a new domain, a new region, a new environment, that we have a tendency to trash our environment. 60 years ago, when Yuri Gagarin flew in space, space was pristine. Now, with this new debris in space, there's more than 20,000 pieces of debris in orbit, old rocket stages, old satellites, pieces of debris that have been created because of missiles shot into space. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to be difficult for you and the next generation of astronauts to fly into space because there'll be so much debris and pollution up there. So Canada is a partner with many other countries in the world that is trying to come up with stronger regulations, better policies that stop nations from creating debris in space, for taking responsibility for bringing their satellites, bringing their rockets back down to Earth after a mission is over. And then again, we need young scientists, young engineers to come up with brilliant and cost-effective ways of cleaning the mess that is already up there. So, good question. So that's the end of our event for today. One housekeeping item to do just before we leave. Could I ask all of the students who answered a question for David Saint-Jacques or asked a question to David to come on up to the front, and we're going to take a group photo. If the rest of you can just wait for a minute while we get this group photo done, and then we'll have further instructions.